It's me, Arctic, and in today's video we're going to be going over a complete Yae Miko artifacts guide. We'll be talking about what artifacts are going to be the best choices for her, and generally kind of what build they're going to focus in on. In terms of actually building Yae, there's a few things that we have to keep in mind, one of those being that she does focus more as a sub DPS and burst support type of character. Her auto attacks aren't necessarily the best, but you could potentially make those work if you would focus in on a build like that. Another thing to keep in mind is that she does actually convert elemental mastery into actual extra bonus damage for her elemental skill. But in terms of artifact sets, we do have quite a few options to look at and see if they're going to be any good. So the first artifact set that I want to talk about is the Wanderer's Troupe set. Two piece of this gives you 80 points of elemental mastery, and so that's a pretty solid buff right there. And that 80 points of elemental mastery is actually going to be converted to 12% elemental skill damage. So honestly, you can kind of think of this as like an elemental skill damage booster type of two piece. And then the 4 piece of this could be alright if you are going like main DPS Yae Miko. It increases your charge attack damage by 35% if the character uses a catalyst or a bow. And now the good thing about Yae is that her charge attack multiplier is still pretty substantial, and it can actually hit like larger enemies multiple times. Another good thing about this is that all you would have to do is be like pop on the field, place your E skills, something like that, and then do like potentially a charge attack, and you could be getting some pretty good DPS rotations from this, along with its 2-piece buffing that elemental skill damage. So overall, a pretty substantially interesting option to consider. Another set to consider is going to be the Thundering Fury 2 and 4-piece set. Now the 2-piece is going to be pretty good if you pair that up with like a 2-piece Gladiator set or something like that, because then you can get like electro damage bonus, plus also getting that like extra like attack percent, which is going to be pretty important on Yae because that's going to be factoring into her overall kit. She does have an alright base attack, so attack percent is going to be pretty valuable on her. But alternatively, running a 4-piece of this could actually be pretty good as well, because her elemental skill cooldown is like 9 seconds, I believe, and really you're going to be wanting to get up to all 3 stacks on her elemental skill, and so this is definitely going to help out with that by reducing the actual skill cooldown basically every time you're going to be hitting enemies with this. It also increases like your overloaded, electrocharge, and superconduct damage by 40%. The 4-piece of this is probably really good if you want a runner has like a main sub DPS, I would say. I'm going to briefly talk about Shimenawa's Reminiscence set, but it's not really necessarily the best. The only really good thing about it is it's 2-piece, basically running it as a 2-piece for something. But like the 4-piece, it's not really going to be that great. It does give you like 50% more like auto and charge attack damage or whatever. You're still not really going to be getting that much out of your Yae Miko for that. Like the best I could say is like charge attack, going like a 4-piece Wanderers would actually be better. The Thundersoother set is probably going to be a viable option, I would say, especially if you are running like a mono electro comp, like with Yae Miko, Raiden Shogun, Kujo Sara, and like Kazuha or something like that. You could potentially get away with running something like that, or like an Animo healer or whatever. Increase the damage you deal against opponents affected by electro by 35%. So that includes like your normal attacks, because Yae Miko is a catalyst user, so all of her damage is electro. It basically includes like your elemental skill damage is going to be increased by 35%, but then also your elemental burst damage is going to be increased by 35%. So in theory, this could actually be a pretty viable set to use with Yae Miko. But once again, if the enemy is affected by any other elements other than electro, you're going to be missing out on a lot of that damage. The final, but probably one of the better artifact sets to use is actually going to be the Emblem of Severed Fate 2 and 4-piece set. The reasoning behind this is because Yae Miko's burst does cost a lot of actual particles. Basically has like a 90 burst energy cost, so it's kind of similar to Raiden, except she doesn't really have anything that actually builds up like her energy inside of her actual like kit really that much. Her like E skill doesn't really create too many particles. It's like particles over time, but it's still like a very low amount. A 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate is actually going to be extremely good, especially if you are going for like more of a burst support type of Yae Miko. This is actually going to really help you out a lot. So what you can kind of end up doing with this is like placing like one totem around the field or something like that, using her as like a kind of a sub DPS, I would say, using her along with like Raiden Shogun, something like that. What you're going to do is once you actually get your burst full, you're going to place the rest of your totems down wherever you're going to actually cast your burst. And this is going to be extremely good actually single target. Keep your burst basically refreshed pretty reliably, and it's also going to increase like the amount of burst damage you get, which is where Yae Miko's like large amount of damage actually comes from. Her E skill is like very good damage over time. Now honestly, I probably wouldn't recommend running like energy recharge actual main stat artifacts on your character, because honestly, keeping that attack percent up is going to increase the amount of like E-skill damage that you're going to have and whatnot. It's basically going to increase her overall DPS versus just going for only burst DPS. This artifact set is going to have a very good performance on Yae Miko. Yeah, anyway, that's basically it for the video. A like down below is very much appreciated. But anyway, it's been me, Arctic. I will see you guys in the next one. Farewell.